Morning, everyone. I show it's 11 o'clock Central Time. And so I want to say good afternoon or good morning, wherever you're tuning in from today. And welcome to the What the Silver Chalice Means to the Life of the Church webinar. My name is Britt Detain. I'm with the NBA. And we are proud to partner with our collaborative partner, Older Adult Ministries, to bring this webinar to you today. And so before we get started, I get to share a couple of things for you, just so you know. For those of you that have been here before, you've heard this spiel, but we will be recording this webinar for those who can't join us to watch later, or if you want to go back and watch, or feel like you would like to share it with others. It is available on NBA's YouTube page and website. Probably in the next few days, you'll be able to see those there. But because of that, we invite you to keep your camera on or turn it off during the presentation. During our breakout session later, we invite you to turn the camera on and be, invited to be part of that conversation. But we do ask that you check to make sure that your microphone is on mute during the presentation. Also, did want to let you know that there is a breakout session that's going to be later in this program. During that time, there will be some rooms that you'll be assigned to. There will be some questions that will be posted in chat before we go there, and that will be the topic that helps lead the discussions that go from there. So at this point, I will go ahead and turn it over to Jan Aerie, coordinator for Older Adult Ministries. We'll get us started today. Jan?
Oh, thank you, Britt, and thank you everyone for being here today. We're really excited to see you. Lois and I have a plan for how we will present on this topic today, and Britt has outlined some of that for you. But we thought the very first thing that we would do is each of us would give you a brief introduction about ourselves, and then it will come back to me for starting our conversation about resources specifically. So I am Jan Aerie. I coordinate the Older Adult Ministries for the NBA. And we're just so grateful to have this work, to have you be part of it, and to be part of the NBA and the denomination. So we've been at work for about 5 years, a volunteer group of us who meet once a month. And we are passionate, but we are also practitioners of older adult ministries. And in that work, we seek to find ways to support and to guide congregations, but also facilities that are affiliated with the DOC in the work of older adult ministries. And so, one of the topics that we've heard most frequently requested when it comes to a webinar that we're responding to today is what about resources? And some of that relates directly to Silver Chalice, and some of it relates to anyone who's interested in learning more. And I'll come back to that in a little bit, but here's Lois for you.
I'm Lois, and I pastor a church that actually meets in an independent assisted living facility. So we are just there to be their church. Um, Everything that is, it's the worship, it's the fellowship time, it's the outreach, it's the missions, everything you do in your church, we just do there. So we're not another loss. We couldn't find anybody that was doing that, and I get a lot of calls from facilities asking if there are churches like ours that would come in their facility. So if you're interested, let me know. But I put together a book that's available on Amazon. If you're interested, it kind of is sort of step by step what we did and what you might do. Now, this is called Ditch the Building, Invest in People, because that's what we did. We ditched our building. So we had more funds to put into people. You can also do this without getting rid of your building. It still can easily be done and partnering with other churches too. So it kind of gives you that. It gives you examples, ideas for a ministry with older adults living in that community. My favorite thing about it is the cover. This was designed by one of the residents who has dementia. It took us a while and a lot of work, but we did it, and her face just lit up when she saw the the finish when I gave her the book. So that's kind of my favorite thing about that. But They're just ones living in community have a lot of losses, and one of those losses is their church. So from what I hear from the residents, they're just thankful that they have a place to still go and worship, to be part of a church family. It's not a once a week, it's all throughout. It's we're their church family. So send it back to you, Jan.
Thanks, Lois. You'll hear from her a lot more later. I wanted to answer the question, well, what does Silver Chalice offer the life of our churches? Well, we could enumerate many things, but I hope today you might help us do that even more. It supplies direction and guidance and purpose for older adults. It supplies a kind of a focus and opportunity, as well as an excitement that leads to vitality, that leads to churches being larger and to churches being more lively. But one of the major things that we supply through Silver Chalice, and Silver Chalice offers the churches, is resources. We have a plethora of resources which we continue to grow on our website. And so we want to respond today with a request for that, and also just to share some highlights of what some of those are. But during our format today, we want to ask you to think about what is it that we're sharing with you that really resonates with you in terms of resources? What questions have you got? What particular areas of focus or topic are you interested in? And so on. So during our breakout room session, we're going to ask some of those questions specifically of you, but we're inviting, as always, your feedback. Lois's book and other resources will be available to you with an email that gets sent to you tomorrow so that you'll see again where you can find some of the things that we talk about and what's in the chat as well. So let's start by looking at that website. We're going to share a screen with you so that you can see what is important to us and what might be of interest to you. Here we are on our website. You'll see that it is with the National Benevolent Association, and it is a tab that is under the program tab up above, Older Adult Ministries. And that under that, then when you go to that site, you will see what you see here, an overview and then an invitation to join us for our newsletter, which we'll talk about a little bit later, and click on resources. So the resource page is where we're going to hang out today quite a bit. I'm first going to talk with you about the Silver Chalice ministry resources that are here, and you will see that there are several, but they're also sprinkled throughout all of our other resources as well. So the handbook is the first on the resource list here for Silver Chalice. Under that handbook, which pretty much is an overview of everything you could possibly need or we think want for becoming a Silver Chalice ministry within your church or affiliated group. And inside that handbook, one of the very first things you'll see is that there is an overview, a description of what and why Silver Chalice. You can have these in separate documents as well, but what we think about this is important to emphasize the reason why and what it is exactly. And you'll have a chance when you look at this, or if you have already, to learn some of the reasons and purpose, which is what I was describing in some of those key words earlier. But we wanted to try to think of everything we could possibly think of that would go into this handbook. And I want to extend thanks for the work that went into this to Kimberly Weir and Lynn Eddy, who are both with us today, too. So on the next page of this, you'll see that there are some guidance. There is some steps that are required and expected. Silver Chalice follows the green chalice, if you're familiar with that, from our denomination process. We wanted to keep it simple not too easy and yet challenging at the same time. So there are two different levels enumerated there, plus the expectations of what the process is and what's required of it. But the question that we're most often asked about that is, well, exactly what does that mean? So here is the nitty-gritty, the step-by-steps that a church or a facility are requested to take. And in that nitty-gritty, then we often are asked the question, well, what ideas do I need to come up with as far as the program? Because that's what we're asking for, programs. And so we've listed some. We have many more listed in other resources as well on the website, which we won't get to all of that today. But we've listed some that are most common, some that are not too difficult to meet immediately, and some that are a little bit of an over-the-top challenge as well. So next, what a church or facility might be choosing to do is to sign this commitment, this covenant that we've asked churches to sign first to indicate their intention and their hope that they will follow this process. And what comes from that then is submitting that signed covenant to our website and to us. But then what is returned is a commitment from the Silver Chalice program and the commitment that we as a group have for you, each of you. And in that commitment, we are including a Silver Chalice guide, an individual that stays connected with you and your team and guides, but also supports, is cheerleader and supplier of many resources that might be wished for or needed. So, in that commitment, then comes the wish that there would be some places just to write things down. I think that Kimberly and Lena were really good at coming up with all these categories. It's really a worksheet of several more pages to show what are the ways that you can keep track, what are the ways you can stay focused, what are the ways that you can guide yourselves through this process and keep track of it. And a part of that for us is that we ask for accountability in this program, as others do too. So, Silver Chalice designated churches are invited to share their story, to share what they have done, what they hope to do, and even to share some photos with us and some ways that we can help to spread the news and share that good news. So I'm going to shift now to show you another resource, but in a little bit, you'll have a chance after Lois and I have shared to ask us some questions and to offer your experiences too in a whole group time. We wanted to stop here just to highlight these topic categories that you'll see that run across the top of the page. These categories are hugely helpful, I think, because they sort out the resources into topics. Sometimes it's really helpful to jump around to different topics because they could be blended between a couple of different topics. We're not going to get to all of this today, obviously, but I wanted to highlight for you that the study guides category there and the meditation and contemplation categories are ones that have been most highly requested. If you're not aware, several years ago, we offered a survey for the denomination, and the most wished for resource or topic that was requested was meditation guidance, meditation contemplation. So, under that topic, you're going to find many opportunities for reading, using guided meditation as well as various contemplation meditation processes in booklets that have been created by our team. And the study guides as well. There are Bible studies there. There are studies of other types that are supportive of beginning a working team on particular topics, as well as those that might come through on the dementia care or support group tabs. But right now, I wanted to call your attention to the action tools. When we look on this tab, you're going to see, if we just scroll down for a second, there's Lois's book. as well as a number of other action tools that we put into this category. We work very hard to be specific about what actions on which topic and how steps can be taken that are doable as well as challenging for churches. So we've tried very hard to be good about sharing on many topics, and we'll be asking later, as I mentioned, what are some you would like? I want to just share some time with you about the toolkit for creating older adult ministries. It is a complete handbook booklet, much like the Silver Chalice booklet is complete in the sense that it's like a workbook. It goes from looking at what is older adult ministries all the way through accomplishing something. So on our second page, first second page of this, you will see after the welcome that we are inviting a group to work by beginning with a Bible study. Because the context in laying the foundation of older adult ministries has to do with studying the Bible and finding some answers there first. But next, we go beyond that into, what is a specific way to put that nitty gritty again, shall we say, into effect with a church survey. We feel it's very important and vital for churches to know what is your church made up of demographically, number-wise, membership-wise, and in all other kinds of ways to gain a full understanding of where things are in the present moment without being too challenging or difficult. We continue on from there because that survey then leads to seeing, well, what are some of the ways that a congregation could consider possibilities of what's greatly needed in their own community, in their church community, as well as their geographic community? And so again, we list some specific categories. What are some topics? What are some ways that this group element in conversation can cover some of the needs that exist? Once a church has decided or a group have decided what are those activity alternatives that seem most interesting, then we want to move on from that place and we want to talk about, well, how can we choose to take those alternatives and create them into something that's tangible and that's real, that might be a program or a learning process or something that we choose to focus on in our ministry. And maybe there's a timeline for that, for 1 year, for instance, or something like that, that helps to make this a practical and achievable goal. So once this has been defined by the church or by this group of people, then we go on to that to say, well, it's really important to put it in writing. And here we have this sort of blank page, but purposely with lots of lines on it that says, what's goal number one? And what's goal number two? And what is the objective? And what is the timeline? We found, as you probably have in your own personal life, when you write something down, it makes it a lot more real. It also makes it something that you feel is very important to achieve and attain. So this booklet in its entirety has really been something that churches have found very helpful, just in beginning to find a foundation to build a ministry upon. So with all of that, I'd like to ask Lois to share some with you now.
Okay. And I'm going to share with you a little bit some of our resources for intergenerational ministries and then some support groups. So the first one we'll look under those intergenerational ministries that bringing generations together. And you'll see that first resource there about bringing generations together. This is about storytelling and how to share our faith stories. It kind of uses a little bit of the worship and wonder, but bringing that into more of a intergenerational and older adults. This was put together by Kay Edwards along with Reverend Elaine Austin, which I believe is on here too. Dr. Susan McFadden, Jan, and myself had put this resource together. But with Worship and Wonder, there's a little box there, and it says it incorporates many different learning styles using a multisensory approach of storytelling as a primary means for encountering God. God is experienced, not just learned about. This approach enables all generations together to bring their lived experiences into dialogue with God in biblical stories and to share these experiences with others. So, it goes on, it kind of gives you that overview about it. And then when we go over there to page 3, um, it gives you some good examples there of stories you can use, some of the Bible stories, even a link to a video. So if you're not comfortable or have the resources to tell those stories yourselves, you can watch that video together of the storyteller, and then just kind of ponder some of those wondering questions that may be answered and may not. It's whatever that group feels like what doing and what God brings up into them. Um, on page 4, it also gives you ideas. It's about ways to share our personal stories and how our faith interacts. I found a lot of times in some of my conversation with the older adults that I work with, I hear stories that their families never knew. And, as I'm talking with families, either just visiting or a lot of times at their funeral planning, there, I didn't realize that. We just don't, it's stuff we don't think to share. We just lived it. So we're busy living our lives and then we just don't think to share it with our children and our grandchildren. This is a good way to bring that about, and share those stories and share our faith stories. And then towards the end of that on page 6 and 7 there's a lot of resources again that you can click on for doing this and things to help start those conversations, start those stories. Then there's a book list as well of different books that could be helpful in doing this type of ministry. So it's a pretty good resource for just bringing about that intergenerational and sharing those life stories as well as the faith stories and um, just our belief system and how it continues to grow. It doesn't stop when we get older. We continue to grow. So it's just a nice way of sharing those stories. The other one that I want to share with you is the support groups. And um, there's that starting a caregiving support group there. Um, Kind of gives you a good outline of how to do that. Um, it gives you the possible formats. You can see there guidelines for your support groups. Just a lot of good information that walks you right through what that might be. Um, and then on page 2 and 3 there, it gives you some topics that you might want to consider for your support groups. Perhaps that's just a support group for dementia, for caregiving strategies, housing health support, compassionate communication. There's just quite a few of them. Just to kind of get you thinking, you could do those, or they might bring about another support group that you feel there's been a real need for. Um, and so it gives you some of those ideas of what you can do. And then it also gives you resources, again, that you can click on links to take you to those resources. Um, so it builds the whole support group. It really helps you to bring that about when you're like, well, we need this, but I don't know how to start it. I don't know what to do. I don't know what resources to use. So that's a good resource that everything is right in there. Um, I've had people come in there like we need this grief support group, and then as we find out, it's a little bit more than just a grief that they need. And as we're building, as we look at some of these, it helps us to build that group that just goes exactly towards what their needs are at that time. So those are just some of the other resources that can help you with that intergenerational and your support groups. So.
Thank you, Lois and Britt, for being our web page mover. That was a huge help. As we return to our whole group again, in a few minutes, we're going to invite you to join a breakout room, a small group, to have a continued conversation. But I'd like to ask you now if you have some questions or thoughts or just some practical aspects of what you have heard so far. And we'd love to hear from you. And we are enjoying also seeing what you're placing in the chat, which will be something that we also want to pay attention to. But I would love to hear from you now if you have some questions or thoughts about those particular resources or others that Lois and I shared with you.
Well, this is John Smith. I'm in St. Louis, and
Welcome,
I,
John.
I'm assuming that my experience, I'm a layperson, first of all, but I have a counseling background. I worked for the National Benevolent Association years and years and years ago. So there's that back there that drives my interest. What we're facing is what I think a lot of congregations are facing right now. There aren't nearly as many of us to do anything as there used to be. When
Mhm.
we did our green chalice, we were getting 100 to 150 people in worship, and we had a sizable contingent beyond that joined in church activities. Now we're down to 20 or 30. We nest in another church and share that space with another congregation from another denomination. So
Mhm.
as you look at this, and I know you all have done a lot of work probably with groups in different churches already, how does that affect what this program does to have those smaller numbers to work with?
Well, it's a big question, and it's one I think that we all are living in this room, in this group. But I'll attempt to answer that a little bit, and others, please, Lois and others, please join in. Yes, absolutely recognize the smaller numbers. One of the things that we push back against is when we hear an older person or a church that has a large number of older people in it saying, "We're done, we're retired, we want some young people to pick up and do this." And our response to that is something like, "You never retire from being God's church or God's person. But yes, there are times you need to retire from what you're done doing or tired of doing and do something else." And this is where we come up with the challenge. I think that much of what we supply in terms of the resources that we offer, we are intentional about them being something that an individual or even a small group could do. And we do know that churches are selling buildings or moving with other churches and nesting together. And that whole collaborative aspect is just so rich and so inspiring that churches could work together, should work together, might work together. But we try to advocate all of that as well as being intentional about even one person could accomplish the designation of silver chalice designation in their church if they had the support of the rest of the congregation to do it. So that's a small part of an answer, but others, Lois, do you have anything to say to that?
Yeah, I my church started out 20 to 25 people and they were tired. And that's when we ended up going into the retirement community ministry there. Um, so I think that is a concern, but it's a way of looking at it, sort of what Jan said. We don't get to retire. How do you continue to share that faith? How do you
Yeah.
continue to grow? And I now have people that will come up and say kind of what you said, I'm retired and I led Bible studies. I did all of that and I don't want to do that anymore, but I'll help. And I'm like, okay. And I said, well, I've had a request for a prayer group. Oh, I can lead that. So then it's just got to be what is the passion? What is still the spark in them? They don't want to do the stuff that they always had to do that they just made themselves do because they thought it was important, because it was. But what is it that they're really passionate want to continue to still do? I think we got to tap into that.
Okay. Thank you both. Those are excellent responses. I'm writing like crazy here.
Oh, well, thank you for your question. We could take another quick question before we shift to our breakout rooms if you have one.
Jan, can I
Yes.
make a comment? I'm Marcia from Sun City Christian Church. I'm a moderator, but also I started a wellness group a couple years ago. And as you can imagine, being in Sun City, we have everyone's retired in order to live here. We have during the winter, we have maybe 40 or 50 individuals. In the summer, we have closer to 20 to 30. We have a very active wellness program that I developed, and we're one of the things we did a couple years ago was or last year we did a Lenten program on finishing faithfully, but every month we have multiple sessions. We have like 2 or 3 different seminars where we always serve food. You know, as disciples, we eat a lot. But what we've gone to now is our Wednesdays. We start with our support group, and then we have an hour of exercise, chair exercises, and that attracts people from the community, which is our ultimate goal is seniors, serving seniors. And then we have our wellness programs, and twice a month, and then another week we do a lunch and learn about something. So we always furnish lunch. And then one week we do games. So all of those activities attract different people. But in addition, we're in the process of trying to define where people's strengths are. My background is I have a PhD in public health, community health and education. Other people, we have some doctors, we have nurses. Our Perry's nurse is 88, and she seeks people out when she knows that they need a little bit, a little touched, or so we're finding people's niche. We have people in their 90s. When we have potluck dinners, they're the first ones in the kitchen to help clean up or set up, and they just take such pride in being part of what we're doing. We also our DWM group is also getting smaller. So my friend and I do a lot of the sewing, and then we make things. And then if it needs stuffed or turned, we do it during our fellowship time. And so even the men are like, "Well, what are we working on this week?" So it's kind of a know your population. You just like any public health or any other initiative is to know who your population is, as you mentioned, and then seeking out those individuals to use the skill set that they've acquired over the years. So.
Thank you so much. It's so helpful to hear that, Marcia. I'd appreciate all that you've shared about ways you're working with your group and ways that things are working there for people to be included and inspired by that. I would encourage all of you to share more, as Marcia has in the smaller group. We do have a couple of questions we'd like for you to address. We have people who will be helping to facilitate your small group. Those questions have to do with what resources do you feel are most needed, and what resources do you wish that you could find? But in answering those questions, you are invited and welcome to share your own experience, the practical applications of some resources that have really worked for you, or that, again, you'd like to share, as Marcia has, with things that you are doing. We have about 10 minutes, or a little longer than 10 minutes, let's say, for our small group time. plan that we want to share from everyone in our larger group once we return from those breakout rooms. So we'll see you in about 10, 12 minutes. Lois, would you like to take up on our facilitating a little conversation here? I think everyone's back now, it looks like.
Okay, yeah. So we'll just kind of ask each group if you want to just share a little bit about what you talked about, whether it was some resources that you found that were helpful or needed, or other ideas that you had that you were doing. Um, so um, we'll start with Kimberly. Do you mind if we start with your group first?
No, and I invite them to chime in. But I thought it was really great that one of the people with us um, currently doesn't have anything specific for older adults in her church, in her community, that they've kind of like just kind of dispersed and blended in with. I appreciate this conversation because it enabled us to talk about the value of having something separate, something that not just acknowledges the older adults, but celebrates them and finds ways to help nurture the spiritual growth of our older adults. And in addition to having resources and programming. But the two main topics that came up were related to Alzheimer's and dementia and caregivers. So related to the Alzheimer's and dementia, um, some resources about talking to the families. That challenge of when at church you notice that somebody in the family is already is definitely dealing with some form of dementia. How do you approach that person or that person's family with that conversation to be helpful and supportive? And then of course the caregiver support that is so important. So anybody else from the group I was in have anything to add? Thank you all.
Okay. And Anna Marie, you want to share with your group?
Surely. The one note that I took about resources desired is resources for grant funding. And I thought that was a really good
Yeah.
thing to want. And other than that, our people either are involved or just not in the question asking mode at the moment. Thank you.
Okay. That would be a good resource, the grants funding. So, and Jan?
That's a perfect segue, Anna Marie. So thank you. Al, I'm going to ask you to share in just a minute, if you will. But the group that I was in shared a lot about what they are doing and some of the work around wellness as well as other lunch and learns and many other ways that we can help work with older adults as well as those of other ages too. But just as we were asked to come back to our whole group here, Al shared something about funding. Before you do that, Al, I'd like to just offer too, this is a good promo for the fact that NBA, offers grants. And if you didn't know, we can send the link and show you where you all might be eligible to apply as a church or an organization for some funding in support of older adults. And there are 2 times during the year when that invitation to apply is open. And we are in the midst of that right now. I'm hesitating because I don't remember what the deadline of that is. But there's a form to complete, and there is through March 25th. Thank you. So, Al, would you just share quickly what you shared with us in our group?
Absolutely. I mentioned that I've been a professional musician my entire life, and for 10 years I was the vice president of the local union here in Arizona, Professional Musicians of Arizona. They have a program, it's actually a national program, but the local unions um, um, can, can sponsor music for seniors. I was in an event where I had a conversation with the new president of the union, and she invited me, said, apply for these, please. It's called the Musicians Performance Trust Fund. If you have a local musicians union in your community, which you probably do, or one close by, I would suggest that you contact them for funding for any music programs, 100% funding for seniors, 50% for other events. But if it's a senior program, they will fund it 100%. And I say this because to me, what I have seen personally and in other events that I've visited, participated in, music is very important to the lives of people, seniors, and especially those with memory issues, some type of dementia, because that's one thing that doesn't seem to lose. They don't seem to lose, or if they do, it's towards the end, and it's so enjoyable, and it's one thing people can remember for sure.
Mhm. Thanks, Al.
Okay, and so then in the group that I was in, they shared some wonderful resources, things that they're doing. Um, we were looking at like ways just to get people back involved again, when with the older adults. I just want to share a couple of them that I thought were really good. One was a shared meal ministry. And feel free to pipe in for me, Etienne, in case I miss this wrong. But they get together, like people want to like, do cooking for once a month. You cook once a month and you've got meals for the whole month. So they come in and you bring ingredients and everything to cook one meal, but 20 servings or how many people, and you all work together to make your meals, and then at the end you share that, you divide them all out, and then you've got meals for a month and you had a great time doing it. Some can even come that don't maybe want to cook, but they'll help chop or clean up, and so it's just a nice fun way and for all generations to get together and do something, and then they've got that. Um, and also we looked at like just monthly groups going out to restaurants for people that aren't able to get out very much, but that's something they can do and just go to a local restaurant. So just kind of good. One is a church that's being rebuilt from a tornado in Kentucky there, and they're getting ready. And I love that they're built in their new building community space. I think that's it. If your church isn't serving your community, there's a problem. If it's
Mhm.
only serving you and not your community, you got a big problem. And I love that they built it intentionally for that, and even a safe room. So if there's another tornado, people can come and go to that tornado safe room. So I love that they were thinking about the community in building their building. So I think we had a lot of good resource sharing in those groups.
Yes, and thank you all so much. This calls to mind the fact that we want to ask you again, remind you to share your stories with us, share your links, share your photos, share what you're doing. And you can do that in a number of ways. We'll include this in the resource that, or the email with resources we send to you tomorrow. But there will be a link there for you to send a generic email to us through NBA, but also Lois is the keeper of our Facebook group page, Silver Chalice. You're welcome to post them there because then we can have some give and take, some conversation back and forth, and some idea sharing that's public. That would be absolutely wonderful. Don't forget that what we have in the chat today, there's a number of things there. We'll try and capture all of that so that we can as well share that with you. But the importance of our hour of doing this together is to learn and listen. And we've learned a lot today, but you have an awful lot of wonderful things to share. We know we've only scratched the surface when it comes to that. So, our reminder to you today is with thanks that watch for the email tomorrow and make sure that you continue to do the sharing. Sign up for our newsletter. Make sure that you can stay in touch with us. And just by closing our hour today, I'd like to offer you just this brief thought for the day, which is one that every fourth day in March I remember. Because if you speak of this date, as we would in an informal kind of way, you would say it's March 4th. March 4th is the date of a dear friend's birthday in my friendship circle. And she taught me a long time ago that she feels lucky to have a birthday on March 4th, which I've never forgotten since, because God is offering her the challenge. You must march forth. And she has found that challenge in her life and kept marching. So I'd like to challenge you today, as this is March 4th, that you continue to remember that we all are called as Christians, as individuals, as citizens, in whatever other ways that we are family members, friendship members, we can march forth. And that's what we've done in this hour. We have marched to a new place, to a new element, and to a new moment. Well, thank you for sharing all of that and being a marching companion with us in this ministry of Older Adult Ministries. So, best wishes to you for the rest of your day. Bye bye, everyone.